we go to dinner and then we start talking. That would be my preference.
Conversation. I have nothing but the highest regard for all of the talk show men and women, even Jimmy Fallon.
The 7 most high guests David Letterman ever had. For over 3 decades, David Letterman sat across from thousands of celebrities on his late-night couch. Most guests arrived ready to promote their latest projects with rehearsed stories and carefully crafted charm. But some guests showed up in a very different state, clearly under the influence of something that made their interviews unforgettable for all the wrong reasons.
I have been looking high and low. I am determined to find a shirt that looks good untucked.
Unlike today's carefully managed celebrity appearances, the 1980s and 1990s were a wilder time in Hollywood. Stars would arrive at studios straight from parties, after-hours clubs, or private celebrations where substances flowed freely. Letterman, always the professional, had to navigate these situations live on television while millions watched from home. Dave had seen everything over the years, revealed a former Late Show producer who worked with Letterman throughout the 1990s. He could tell within seconds if someone had been drinking or using drugs before they even sat down. The question was always whether to continue with the interview or cut it short. What viewers saw at home was often just a glimpse of the chaos happening behind the scenes. Slurred words, confused answers, and bizarre behavior became legendary moments that people still talk about decades later. These weren't just celebrities having a bad day. These were stars who arrived clearly impaired, creating uncomfortable situations that Letterman had to manage with professionalism and humor. 7. Drew Barrymore. Drew Barrymore was Hollywood's most famous child star, known for her role in E.T. when she was just 7 years old. By her 20s, she had survived addiction, rehab, and a very public wild phase that tabloids covered constantly. When she appeared on Letterman's show in 1995 to celebrate his birthday, she seemed energetic and playful.
First birthday my whole life that I actually enjoyed, because normally when on my birthday I pretty much sit in the bathtub and cry.
But what happened next shocked everyone watching and became one of the most talked about moments in late-night television history. During the interview, Barrymore suddenly jumped up on Dave's desk and started dancing. Before anyone could react, she lifted her shirt and flashed Letterman on live television. The audience went crazy with cheers and laughter while Dave sat there completely stunned, his face turning red with embarrassment. "Oh, that's not necessary," he managed to say, clearly caught off guard by what had just happened.
All of a sudden, it's Daytona, and she's forcing her, and I got nowhere to go.
According to crew members who were present that night, Barrymore's behavior backstage had already been concerning. Drew was incredibly hyper and couldn't sit still, remembered a former stage manager. She was talking really fast and laughing at things that weren't funny. We all suspected she had taken something before coming to the studio, but nobody wanted to say anything because she was a big star. After the show ended, Letterman reportedly didn't know how to react to what had happened. Dave told us he felt uncomfortable because Drew seemed like she wasn't in control of herself, a producer recalled. He worried that people would think he had encouraged her behavior when really he had no idea it was coming. 6. Farrah Fawcett. Farrah Fawcett was America's sweetheart in the 1970s, famous for her role in Charlie's Angels and that iconic poster that hung in millions of bedrooms.
Then Escobar will know something went wrong. He'll cancel the whole show.
I don't like it. No.
When she appeared on Letterman's show in 1997, fans expected to see the glamorous actress they remembered from television. Instead, they witnessed one of the most bizarre and uncomfortable interviews in late-night history. Fawcett seemed completely disoriented, gave nonsensical answers, and acted in ways that left both Dave and the audience totally baffled. From the moment she walked out, something was clearly wrong. Fawcett couldn't focus on Dave's questions and kept getting distracted by random things in the studio. She would start telling a story, then stop in the middle of sentences and look around confused. Her hands moved constantly, playing with her hair and touching her face while she struggled to complete simple thoughts. Dave tried his best to keep the conversation going, but it was like interviewing someone who was on a different planet. "We had to stop taping multiple times because Farrah would just zone out completely," recalled a former stage manager who worked that night. She couldn't remember what she was talking about from one minute to the next. Dave kept looking over at the producers with this expression like, "What do I do here?" Nobody knew how to handle it. The interview was so strange that viewers called the network asking if Fawcett was okay. Tabloids speculated for weeks about what substances she might have taken before appearing on the show. 5. Courtney Love. Courtney Love was the lead singer of the band Hole and the widow of Nirvana's Kurt Cobain. She was known for her raw talent, controversial behavior, and very public struggles with addiction. When she appeared on Letterman's show in the mid-1990s, she brought all of that chaos with her. Her interviews were unpredictable, emotional, and often uncomfortable to watch as she rambled between topics without any filter or self-awareness.
So I begged Carrie for her voicemail and for Meryl Streep's voicemail.
During one particularly memorable appearance, Love arrived wearing a disheveled outfit and immediately started talking nonstop without letting Dave get a word in. She jumped between subjects randomly, going from discussing her band to talking about Kurt's death, to making bizarre comments about other celebrities. Her eyes were unfocused, her speech was slurred, and she couldn't sit still in her chair. Dave tried repeatedly to redirect the conversation, but Love was in her own world. Courtney was clearly on something every time she came to the studio, a former Late Show producer said bluntly. She would arrive late, argue with her handlers, and then go on stage and just talk in circles for 20 minutes. Dave handled it professionally, but you could see him getting more frustrated as the interview went on. What made Love's appearances especially difficult was that she would become emotional without warning. She cried on air, laughed at inappropriate moments, and made comments that Dave had to quickly move past before they became problems. After several chaotic interviews, her appearances became less frequent as Letterman's team decided the unpredictability wasn't worth the ratings. 4. Andy Dick was a comedian and actor known for his work on news radio and various comedy shows throughout the 1990s.
Our car exploded last night and I'm practically all out on my own.
Am I a drug dealer? No.
He was also known throughout Hollywood for his serious substance abuse problems that affected nearly every aspect of his career. His appearances on Letterman's show became increasingly problematic over the years as his addiction issues spiraled out of control. What started as quirky, eccentric behavior gradually turned into obvious intoxication that made everyone uncomfortable. During multiple appearances, Dick showed signs that concerned both Dave and the crew. He would slur his words, lose his train of thought mid-sentence, and make inappropriate comments that had to be edited out before broadcast. His behavior was so erratic that staff members never knew which version of Andy Dick would show up.
No proper time for me on television, but it was a giddy experience and also horrible. But we knew early on we were done.
Sometimes he was funny and engaging, other times he could barely complete an interview. Andy's visits were always stressful for everyone, recalled a former producer who worked on several of his appearances. He would show up late, sometimes visibly intoxicated, and we'd have to decide if we could even put him on the air. Dave tried to be supportive because he knew Andy was struggling, but there were times when the interview was just too messy to continue. One particularly difficult appearance had to be cut short during a commercial break because Dick was making no sense and Dave couldn't salvage the conversation. After that incident, Letterman reportedly told his team that Andy needed to get help before he could return to the show. 3. Matthew Perry. Matthew Perry was one of the biggest stars on television during the 1990s, playing Chandler Bing on the hit show Friends.
Dehydrated Japanese noodles under fluorescent lights. Does it get better than this?
Millions of viewers loved his quick wit and perfect comedic timing every week. What most people didn't know was that behind the scenes, Perry was fighting a devastating addiction to pain medications and alcohol that nearly killed him several times. When he appeared on Letterman's show during the height of his Friends fame, there were several interviews where his substance issues were painfully obvious to anyone paying attention.
Impossible. Yeah. Impossible. I can't count. I'd be in debt. The last credit card I had, I swallowed.
During appearances in the late 1990s and early 2000s, Perry sometimes seemed off in ways that worried viewers and crew members. He would sweat excessively under the studio lights, his hands would shake slightly, and he sometimes struggled to follow Dave's questions. His famous quick wit would disappear, replaced by slower responses and confused looks. In interviews he gave years later, Perry admitted he couldn't even remember doing some talk show appearances because he was so high during filming. There were definitely times when Matthew seemed like he was struggling, remembered a former Late Show staff member. Dave would try to help him through the interview by asking easier questions or cutting segments shorter than planned. You could tell Dave was concerned but didn't want to embarrass Matthew on national television. Perry's appearances during his worst years of addiction were difficult to watch for people who knew what was really happening. Letterman, always professional, never confronted Perry publicly about his obvious problems. 2. Whitney Houston. Whitney Houston had one of the most incredible voices in music history. Her powerful performances and record-breaking albums made her a global superstar throughout the 1980s and 1990s. But by the early 2000s, Houston's struggles with drug addiction had become impossible to hide. When she appeared on Letterman's show during this difficult period, viewers could see the dramatic change in her appearance and behavior. The confident, vibrant performer they remembered had been replaced by someone who seemed fragile and lost. During her later appearances on the show, Houston looked noticeably thinner, her skin appeared unhealthy, and her famous energy seemed completely drained. She would sometimes lose focus during conversations, take long pauses before answering simple questions, and seem confused about basic details. Her once powerful voice had become weaker and less controlled, shocking fans who remembered her incredible talent. Dave treated her with gentleness and respect, clearly aware that she was going through something serious. Whitney's decline was heartbreaking to witness, said a former producer who worked on one of her final appearances. Everyone in the building knew she was struggling with addiction, but we all hoped she would get better. Dave was very protective of her during the interview, keeping questions light and trying to make her feel comfortable. The contrast between Houston's earlier confident appearances and her later troubled visits showed clearly how addiction had affected her. Letterman never pushed her about personal issues, instead focusing on her music and trying to give her a positive platform. 1. Crispin Glover. Crispin Glover's 1987 appearance on Letterman remains the single most strange and dangerous interview in late-night television history. The actor, known for playing George McFly in Back to the Future, showed up wearing a long black wig, platform shoes, and acting completely out of his mind. From the moment he walked on stage, it was clear that something was very wrong. Glover spoke in a weird, high-pitched voice, made no sense when answering questions, and moved in bizarre, jerky ways that made everyone nervous. What started as uncomfortable quickly became frightening. Glover suddenly jumped up from his chair and started doing karate kicks near Dave's head, coming dangerously close to actually hitting him. The audience gasped. Dave leaned back in shock, and security immediately moved closer to the stage. During the commercial break, staff members escorted Glover away from the set, while Dave sat there visibly shaken by what had just happened. Nobody knew what Crispin had taken before coming to the studio, but he was definitely on to something, recalled a former stage manager who was there that night. He was acting like a completely different person, and his behavior was so erratic that we worried he might actually hurt someone. Dave was furious after the show because he felt like his safety had been put at risk. For years, people debated whether Glover's appearance was performance art or an actual breakdown. Either way, it remains the most dangerously high moment in Letterman's entire career, and Glover was never invited back to the show. These unforgettable moments show the darker side of celebrity culture and the pressure of fame. David Letterman handled each situation with professionalism, even when guests arrived clearly impaired. Subscribe for more shocking behind-the-scenes Hollywood stories and hit the bell to catch our next explosive celebrity expose about the talk show host whose addiction nearly destroyed their career.